So today is the 13th of Monday, October, and um, the President of the United States, President Trump, is over in Israel. Apparently, he gave a speech regarding quote unquote peace in the Middle East can begin. And I was listening to the speech, and I'm just so glad that what the Creator has given me to speak out on, to say, has actually is coming true and been proven true. They are trying to force in, no, not even trying, they are working at this moment to force in a prophecy that doesn't belong to them. And I'm just going to say it flat out, that until the prophecy belongs to the children of those that are now classified as descendants of American slaves, we go by many, abbreviations: FBA, ADOS, DOAS, which is the one I like to use, the DOAS one, to describe our current situation that we're in. Our bloodline is of the true children of Israel, to which the promise of a New Jerusalem and the promise of the full manifestation of the kingdom of God would come through. The kingdom of Yahshua or Yahuwah has already been established and has already started working behind the scenes in the invisible since the 1980s. There were people during that time from the silent generation and quite possibly the baby boomer, I'm not so sure about that, but quite possibly the baby boomer generation, that were anointed at that time to begin to set up the undergird of the kingdom of Christ that would bring in recovery, healing, peace, and the 1,000-year reign. They would actually manifest that reign. And so many of those had a spiritual experience that was visible to others, that they could see it. Now, some of them, if not all of them, were deemed either demonic, or that they were crazy, or something else, that the demons still had power at that time, even though they were losing their power. They still had power to operate against the kingdom. People who would be the cornerstones of the restoration process that has to take place to bring humanity back to what the proverbial Adam and Eve, what they lost, perfection in mind, body, and spirit, in harmony with the Creator of the universe. So the New Jerusalem is prophesied to bring that on a larger scale. And those who assisted and helped the Israelites would be rewarded by not being destroyed themselves. Now, there are examples of this in the Bible. You have Rahab, if I'm not mistaken, when there were two Israelites who, she was a prostitute, and there were two Israelites who went in and paid for services with her. And she acknowledged, one, that they were the true children of Israel, and that the Creator of the universe was working with them, and that it looks like she was aware of what happened in Egypt that set them free. So what she asked for was that her family, when they would come in to destroy, the inhabitants of her countrymen, that she and her family would be spared. She, again, was a prostitute, so obviously she gave them services. And I guess they made a deal basically saying, hey, if you can get us out of here safely, then, yeah, we will make sure that your family doesn't get hurt. So she let down a rope so that the men can escape over the wall, because, of course, the guards of the city that she lived in were always on the lookout for spies and for those who were of the Israelite bloodline, that they would not come in, and that if they did come in to spy the city, to see the outlay of the city, to know what the city looked like, that they would be able to capture them and, of course, execute them. So this woman actually helped them. Um, and this should be in the book of Joshua, if I'm not mistaken. So she actually helped them, and her family was spared. So there was an alliance between these two men that Joshua honored, um, uh, because their lives were spared. The next one that comes to mind is another lady. I forget her name, and this was in the book of Deborah, and where the king at that time came to Deborah, who was a prophetess in the land of Israel, about going in to do battle with the enemies of that day. And so she had told him, "Look, you're going to be victorious in this battle." But he says, "No, I want you to come with me." And the king that he was going up against, the particular general at that time, was fearful of, because it was a powerful king. And so Deborah rightly prophesied, well, it will not be, the victory will not be given to you, but it will be given to a harlot, or a prostitute. And so that prostitute, when the king of the enemies of Israel came in, lay down with that prostitute and just needed rest because he was trying to escape. And she ended up driving, I guess, a wood or a nail in his brain into the ground, which that speaks volumes in and of itself of of women. So there again was an unspoken alliance that had happened with the between Israel, the children of Israel, and a foreign agent. There's a third one that the Creator has brought to my mind, and it wasn't necessarily in war, but it was in the 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 issue of building up New Jerusalem. And so this was with King Solomon, who I believe he went to the Amalekites, I believe that is who he went to. I should have the Bible in front of me, but King of Solomon, when he came to his throne, he wanted to build the temple. And so the master builder was a foreign person, and that foreign person was also, if I'm not mistaken, a king. And so his ability to cut stone and to hewn wood was unlike any other. And so Solomon came into an arrangement with him to build. He was not a child of Israel, so he was a foreigner. And so he came in and he built up the temple beautifully. And that once that agreement was over, then he went his way. Solomon went his way, but he did bless him because of his works. So you have here with America trying to emulate the same thing with a nation that has been propped up to be called Israel, to emulate, to be called the true children of Yah, with the promise of the blessing. And so during President Trump's speech, he has said that their captivity. And so I don't know if this is double speech or not, because it flies in the face of the reality of the situation that's going over there. Those people that are now occupying that area of land were not captive of anyone. They were not slaves for 400 years to anyone. And their ethnic origin, as well as their DNA origins, speaks of them being part of Russia, being part of what used to be the lands of Genghis Khan, the eastern part of Europe, There is another master teacher of ours who has now passed on, John Henrik Clark, who really traced the line of those people and how they ended up in the Middle East, and that at one time they were going to try to go to Ethiopia, but because they considered us less than human, they decided not to. And Ethiopia has more of a blood claim to being Hebrew, like we do over here in America, than any other people that are now currently occupying the space that the president went over to do the speech today. So John Henrik Clark had traced the line of the people that now are calling them, that refer to themselves as Jews and Jewish. And he also gave a synopsis as to the origins of the name Jew, because you do not find it in the Bible or in the original text of the Gnostic Bible. Okay, you find the word Israel, Israelite, Hebrew. But the name Jew comes from that the adopters of the faith, of those black men and women who were bloodline related to the ancient people that were set free from Pharaoh, or the ancient people that has a divine purpose to bring humanity back to perfection and harmony with our creator of the universe, that they sold jewelry throughout Europe. And although some can possibly say that there is a blood link between them, because if you had the Moors up in there and they're having sex with everything that walked, there's this possibility that those who were Ethiopian or from that part of Africa, who meandered in that part of the world, did sleep with some of the Europeans that were there. So there is that possibility that there is that bloodline exchange. But there's more to it than just the bloodline. The bloodline is important but it could be important for a different reason. There is such a thing as a synagogue of Satan. So the synagogue acknowledges that there may be a blood Hebrew line in there, mixed in, but that their service and purpose was not for the kingdom of the creator of the universe. The service and purpose was for the to manifest and uphold the powers of Satan, so that he may draw from that. And but so you have another lineage line that the creator of the universe told would be distinguishing marks of the true Hebrew Israelites that were given a promise, that of New Jerusalem, and to bring back the whole of humanity back in harmony with our creator and heavenly most high God. And so you have the most arguably wicked regime on the planet that has ruled over this land, America, for the last 500 years. There are books called Without Sanctuary. There are books from Amos Wilson. There are books from John Henrik Clark. There are so many books that detail the horror that we have gone through for these hundreds of years. And that was a key marker for the people who were promised a new land. Why? Because they would have none. Their lands would be snatched from them brutally. Up until World War I and World War II, those that referred to themselves as Jews and Jewish lived in harmony with the people of Europe. And some say, even now, some of the core entities that are anointed by Satan can claim Jewish bloodlines. But the people who were sent on slave ships on an easterly wind to the North nations are now called Americans, and they were called Negroes, and even the more scathing term of that word, they were called black, and now they have fractured themselves into many different segments, but it all means the same thing, that we are descendants of American slaves. Which that confusion of what we're to call ourselves is also part of the prophecy of who it belongs to. And so America has made an alliance to people who serve, possibly in their dealings, to an entity whose power has been now snatched from him. He cannot, and they cannot, orchestrate any kind of peace deal that will proclaim them as the kingdom of heaven. That is to be done here. The New Jerusalem is here. And there's great evidence of many of the anointed ones, especially those in the 80s and in the 90s, but really in the 80s, that make up the core unit of Christ's Kingdom Administration, are right here in California. And California was a strip that, again, that went down to the southern part of Mexico, all the way up to the upper part of Canada, from what the ancient maps that white people drew up about California, that it was an island unto itself. So that is why we have the objects in the sky, the three-eye atlas, the what do they call, the other comets that have now broken apart out of Atlas and are on their way here. That's why we have them coming. So I think that this move here is trying to associate that which is in the sky, which is why NASA and a lot of the world is not really saying what the truth is about those. I think that they, in their arrogance, are trying to this is really something, but are trying to force those objects to capitulate to the mess that they're doing right now. And that's not going to happen. You know that there are other prayers, there are other communications going on between the true Hebrew Israelites who are gifted with that promise of a New Jerusalem right here in America. There's another conversation going on. And so to the least of these, the kingdom will be given. And, you know, so from what I've investigated, the president or prime minister Netanyahu has no intention of keeping the peace treaty. But I think that the reason why possibly the Palestinians went along with this, or what they call Hamas went along with this, was because maybe some demons manifest to them, proclaiming themselves to be angels, proclaiming themselves possibly to be a part of the three-eye atlas, telling them that if you make this peace deal, then we'll come and back this up, when that is not the truth. They're being lied to. They have to look over here to the West. When they see that the slave is in a position of power and is meting out the corrective measures to heal the slave first, that's when they know that the kingdom of heaven and that the kingdom of Christ is actually now fully manifest and is now operating on a more global scale. But until then, everything else is suspect, people, and you've got to question it. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to see if this video can be uploaded, and we'll see. All right.